We've just gone pretty deep off camera there. We're already talking philosophy and Buddhism and everything, everyone. But this is going to be great, and it's always an amazing hour. Hopefully, Sean. Last time we did this with Sean, it went for 2.5 hours, I think. So we're going to try and keep this to an hour tonight. Everyone's going to get about 15 minutes each. But welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. This is our second edition of Golf Lessons Live with Inside Golf and Skillest. My name is Baden Schaff. I'm the founder of Skillest, which is the biggest online golf coaching marketplace. And Sean Foley is a big part of that. Sean teaches on the platform and has been a big influence on the evolution of that platform. And we've got four really cool guys here tonight that are all at very, very different stages. We've got people that are competing at, a very, very high level, and then others that are just trying to get good at the game. But first of all, I'll just welcome Sean. Fantastic to have you here, mate. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, no, thanks. I'm trying to get this angle right so I can swing and show people. But yeah, thanks for having me. So I think ultimately what I want to do, with the players is kind of help them, give them some guidance, but also utilize this for all the coaches, who are watching and they're tuned into this, to kind of give them an idea after, after 27 years of making mistakes, this is kind of where I'm at with my understanding. And we were talking earlier about, like, the most important part of surgery is not even the surgery, right? It's everything that leads up to the surgery. So you can't do the surgery until the person is asleep. You can't do the surgery until all the utensils that you're going to use are sanitized, because I think a lot of coaches, and myself included, we're giving good lessons, and just like a surgeon gives a good surgery. But the problem is there's an infection over time because the scalpel wasn't sanitized. And so, for the coaches out there, I'm right at about $25,000 in refunds that I've given people. And after every lesson I give, I normally feel like I failed pretty bad. So if you feel like that, that's fine. There's no, I think that means that you care. And I think that it means that you matter. Now, I don't feel like my clients would tell me that, but the golf swing is such a beautiful, incredible kind of manufacturing of human engineering. And there's a billion neurons firing in one moment. There's neural pathways, there's memories, there's trauma, there's all this stuff. It's just, it might be the hardest puzzle on the planet. And I think that, we want to increase our level of understanding and knowledge to give us more weapons. But at the end of the day, the interaction, the communication with the person and the client that you have, the language that you use. I remember back in the day, Baden, I used to notice how much I would say something and then say to my client, like, say, right. And I remember it didn't feel right to me. And so I started really trying to never say that, because I was putting the onus on the client to tell me, yeah, that's it. It's like if you tell someone who's at your house and you made them dinner and you say, dinner's good, isn't it? They're kind of stuck, right? Like, they're not going to say, no, it's absolutely shit. So there's no communication that way. And we have to be able to communicate. We have to be able to be vulnerable. We have to be able to be wrong. And we have to be able to go down the wrong road to find the right path. It's just not that easy. And so I kind of want to, because I know how difficult it is, when I stand there with Ben On and I stand there with Justin Rose and Lydia Ko and Cameron Champ, these are four completely different movers. Yeah. And two of them hit a fade and two of them hit a draw. And two of them get super open and the others stay super closed. And two of them bow their wrist and two of them extend their wrist. And so if I mix and match those players, they're dead. And so you gotta come up with your own understanding of, like, the things that have to be right. And I think in most lessons with good coaches that work with me, who work with kids, they do a lot of good stuff. But normally when I go in, I end up having to fix posture and fix grips and fix ball positions, because we're missing the stuff that's for free, right? So I haven't looked at these videos. I think it's pretty cool. I wouldn't say it's intimidating because I'm competent, but it's kind of fun to sit in front of all those people and go through it. So I just wanted to freestyle it off of what I said. But Baden, I got some expertise in this because when I first started coaching, I coached for the John Jacobs Golf School, like at 22 years old. And I'd have like 20 clients a day and I had literally 10 minutes with each. So that was for 2 years, that was incredibly good training, especially when we were making $25 a day and we made all our money on tips.
A little bit of speed dating never hurt anyone. I don't think that's all. And I think sometimes it's good though, isn't it? That people can just take, and this is what we say on Skillist all the time, Sean, is that maybe, sort of little bits of information and more often is a far better way to learn rather than huge block learning and only occasionally seeing your coach. So, so let's dive in and let's have a look at Craig here. So Craig, how are you, mate? Thanks for doing this. So just give us a quick background on yourself, where you are based. I know you're up north and very, very short season, but how long you've been playing the game and just a little bit of background.
Yeah, just outside of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and been playing on and off for 5 years. Tried to get back into it 2 seasons ago. Tried to play a bit more last season, played 13 rounds. My goal was over 20 rounds this year, but the first 6 didn't go so well. So I just been at the range trying to figure out the basics here to get going. So.
Totally. And what do you play any other sports and do you do anything left-handed by any chance?
No, I shoot a hockey stick left-handed.
Yeah.
Okay.
But otherwise, I'm a right-hander. And when it comes to baseball, I usually feel like my right hand's my dominant side. But I shoot a hockey stick left. Yeah,
okay.
Ball hockey. Yeah.
Baden, that's pretty normal because the control hand in the stick for a lefty is still the right hand.
Right.
Okay.
So I've seen a lot of hockey. I'm from Toronto, so obviously I've seen a lot of hockey players who play lefty and swing righty. I think Jamie Sadlowski did that as well.
Yeah.
All right. So here's what I'm always asking myself when I'm looking at a video, right? Like the place that we're at, that you can tell he played sports, right? This is with better understanding. This guy's going to be able to hit the ball really good. Okay. There's no doubt about it. Right. So where is the low hanging fruit? So in this first lesson, obviously I want from a standpoint, I want him to hit it better. Okay. You're not supposed to go backwards to go forwards. I think that's the most bullshit thing that anyone can tell anybody. Right.
Yeah.
If someone has to go backwards to go forwards, then what they're trying to accomplish is way too much at that moment. Okay. So I don't have the opportunity with a tour player to make him terrible before he gets good again. Right. So, and it's happened a couple of times, unfortunately, but it wasn't on purpose. So I think let's just look at the setup.
Yeah.
So run down the line back to the setup.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's kind of, the only thing I find difficult with video sometimes is like to really get a good look at the grip, right?
Yeah.
And I think the grip is really hard to teach, like super hard to teach. Okay. Yeah. I prefer grips that aren't strong. I'm not gonna sit there really and change people's grips unless I think that the grip is the main reason they're hitting the ball they're hitting, right?
Yeah.
But basically, take a look. So when we talk about the grip, we use words, eh? So let's go through a little language first, so people can understand. So can you see me, Baden?
I can jump out of here. Hold on. Yeah. Yeah, go for it, Sean.
Okay. So I don't care who the player is. Every player is going to have a stretch phase in their takeaway. Okay. So this is a moment where everything's staying pretty centered. The diaphragm's not moving and everything is into this position. All right. So that's going to be a stretch phase. Okay. Now the stretch phase leads to an unweighted phase in the pivot that then turns into counter rotation, which is then and counter rotation is everything above the diaphragm is staying closed and everything below the diaphragm is the abs and obliques are getting back on top of the pelvis as the ribs are back, right? So we all have a stretch phase, we all have a counter rotation phase, and we all have an extension phase. All right. So there's way too much talk about keeping my butt on the wall and staying in massive amounts of side bend, because the Hall of Fame is full of people whose butt came off the wall and they flipped it through impact, right? Well, they're not in the Hall of Fame because that didn't work. So ideally, we're dealing with that, right? And now based on grips, we're going to have different rates of rotation. I've seen straight hitters with high rates of rotation. I've seen straight hitters with low rates of rotation. So the idea that the club face should be stable the whole time, man, you got to be some athlete to be able to do that, okay? So remember, the key point is very difficult as a coach with all the new understanding. One, it's intimidating to get into sometimes, but two, there's so much information being pushed at us now. It's very easy to keep going down a certain road. And so what I see now a lot is I get players who come to me who are too bowed, their right leg is too extended, and their right arm is too bent coming into impact. And the problem is their ability to hit different shots is very limited. Okay. And it all came from this idea of keeping the club face stable, which I'm for if that works for you. All right. So when we go back to that grip, that's stretch phase, counter rotation, extension, right? Why is Rory doing deadlifts and squats if he doesn't want to stand up? Why is he doing that? Okay. So I don't think you need to Olympic lift, but squatting, lunging, any type of primal movement is great for us, right? Now, the tricky part about golf is that we're bent over, playing to the side, and we're just turning. So a lot of people who send us videos, most of the time, at least during the last 2 years, they're sitting right where they were sitting doing business. They're not moving. They're hunched over. Their fingers are out. Everything about that isn't good for the golf swing. Okay. So when a better player comes to me, I always have them see a couple of different people as long as those guys are in town. I have Mark Bull do their 3D, and then I have Dr. Craig Davies or Dr. Brendan McLaughlin assess their movements, because look, our whole ethos is not to mess people up. So I find more competence in the people that I haven't hurt more than the people that I've helped, because this is like highly complex. And the problem is it's highly complex, but there's going to be articles on the web saying how to hit it 10 yards further in 3 minutes. It's like, please, like, okay, you can do that, but let's not make this seem easy, because it's not easy, right? Arnold Palmer said it the best. Golf is deceptively simple and endlessly complicated. Okay, so if I deceive you, Vaden, I'm lying to you. So even when you're 5 under through 7, it's lying to you. When you've had the best front 9 of your life, it's just lying to you. The back 9's not going to be very good, because and I think if you have that mentality, if that becomes like, if that's your first commandment of your religion, you're going to have a better time playing golf, recognizing that, that's actually the math of golf. Okay. So let's not oversimplify it. That doesn't mean we need to make it complex. All right. So that's how the human body is made to move, right? We've been throwing spears, we've been throwing rocks. That's how we generate force in boxing, you name it, right? Show me a boxer who's still here when he's hitting somebody. They're not. Okay. They've got to extend. So then the second piece of the puzzle is, so let's not call this a backswing, a downswing, and a follow through. Let's call it what we would call it. A physio would call it that. Okay. Now look at the grip. If my left wrist is cupped, what position is my wrist in? It's extended, right?
Yeah.
So it's extended and it's radial. So the way I look at the top is going to have to match how I grip it here to some extent. Now, the problem with this grip being that strong, I would argue if you look at the best ball strikers ever, they're definitely what we would refer to as weak. But why don't we just call that neutral, slightly ulnar, with the left wrist already in supination? So if you have a player whose grip is incredibly weak and he likes it like that, then he's at end range in these joints. Because of how everything is, you're going to have to find a closer. So you're going to have to twist it till it's shut. So I remember coaching Siwoo Kim one day, whose left hand is like this, and his right hand is literally on top. And then Danny Willett, who's like that. I mean, if you get those two mixed up, you're dead, right?
Yeah.
So let's call this pronated and call this extended and call this what it is, rather, and explain that to people. This is what this does. This is the purpose of this, because at the end of the day, as much as we can talk about the body and the golf swing, it's called hand-eye coordination. It's not called hand-to-body coordination. It's not called hand-to-foot coordination, right? So I think that's imperative. If I can do everything with my hands and my eyes and get my body to move in a way that reacts to that intention, that I think is the key. But we have to understand that a lot of the people who send us videos on Skillest have issues with internal rotation. They have issues with external rotation. They have issues with a lot of that stuff. So the reason I say you have to go for the low hanging fruit is because you're speculating that every 50-year-old client you have can actually turn as much as you think he should, right? So we just got to be careful, right?
Totally. So if I was to grab like Craig's setup from the front here, I've actually got Lydia here. Can I bring her up or?
Sure.
Yeah, so this is Lydia from the front, and we can get like a bit of a contrast hopefully here in the wrist angles there in particular at the start. It's a little bit blurry, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the basically I call her the baby goat, and she just calls me a standing coach. So
right.
I'm a big time standing coach. All right, now look, we're dealing with completely different bodies. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but just go back to the start again.
Yeah.
All right. So he's in left side bend. His chest is open.
Yeah.
Okay. And so his pressure's on his right foot. So, I mean, that's it right there. I mean, honestly, if we get that set up better, do you know how much that's going to affect so much of the rest of everything. So remove Lydia for a sec, babe.
Yeah. Do you want to say us or do you? Sorry.
Yeah.
Do you
I want to see both sides of him down the line.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm cool now. I know where I'm at.
You got it. All over it.
All right. So down the line looks a little bit different, but you can still see it. I don't want to see all of someone's left forearm from down the line, right?
Yeah.
So as now just take it back to the top. Okay, stay there. Now take the one from in front. Okay, so the left arm, that's really not an interest to me, right? Every pro golfer in the world has flexion in their left elbow, right? So keep your head down and keep your left arm straight. It's a pretty weak way to hit it. I would challenge anyone out there, if you make a backswing and take it to the top, right? If you keep your left arm bent and you only swing with your left arm, you'll be able to create more speed than if you get your left arm straight, right?
Totally.
Now, if you do the same thing with your right arm and you get your right arm too bent, if you get your right arm wider, it's way easier to create speed. So I'm much more into this being a right-sided game than left-sided game. So look, all he's done in his pivot is basically made a good turn off a bad setup.
Yeah.
So this isn't about, right now to me in this lesson, this isn't about standing the shaft up and laying it down at all.
Yeah.
It's like this is a good enough athlete who has the face open now. And as he keeps going, he gets the hand path left. Yeah. Oh, that day was so sick. This kid blows your brains away every time you watch him hit it.
Yeah. So this is Cameron Champ for anyone out there. This is Cameron Champ. Yeah. But can you see there's just like so much more. This is what Sean's saying here, Craig. See how much more of that you got going on in your setup?
Yeah.
So that's the left side bend that he's talking about, which he said
so show him.
Yep. What Cam looks like at the top.
Okay. So so people see the left arm straight, but that's just because we're trying to keep the right arm and the right wrist straight. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so if you can remove Cam and bring me up right now.
Yeah. I'm coming. Yep.
Yes. So for me with this client, like if he shows up, that right there that's a 1 out of 10 in difficulty to make better.
Yeah.
Like I have my list of 1 out of 10. And if someone's like an 8, it's like, you got to be honest with them up front. And normally if they're like a 7 or an 8, they got injuries from what they're doing.
Yeah.
Okay. So as soon as I get into this position here and I'm open, weight's on the right, chest is open, I'm here. Well, if I just from here make a great turn, I'm still going to be too extended and too much this way. I personally see a lot of great players in slightly more forward bend in this position. I don't really see all this spine extension. I see elevation, but I don't really see extension. I don't think it's good to get your rib cage and your diaphragm tilting this way. The brain doesn't like that, right? That's going to turn into something else. I mean, this is one of the biggest reasons people get over the top.
Yeah.
Right? Is right there. So then you look at his wrist angles. So don't worry, I'll show you from here. So say I go back into this setup again, right?
Yep.
Okay. Now, if I just carry this to the top, of course, my right arm's going to be retracted and behind me, and the club face is going to be open, and I'm going to have no width.
Yeah.
Okay. So width is everything. Width is the whole thing. Because you know what? We need to be wide because we need time to get the club face square. We need time to release the golf club. This is not about bow it and hold it. This is mostly about how neutral are people, and then teaching them out. You're going to tell me that a pitcher is not releasing the ball? He has 5 different releases. Okay. So using your hands is not a bad thing. Okay. Like when they talk about great players, they don't say, oh, that guy's got great pelvis. They say that guy's got great hands. All right. So it's called good hands. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Even if you put Messi's hands behind his back, dude, he wouldn't be the same player. He wouldn't even be close to the same player. Life is done with these things. All right. So say now I'm with the client. I set him up. I'm going to get him into that position. And then I'm going to get him from there to basically lean the shaft slightly. I want him to feel like the left hand and the club is in one line. Because see, from here, if I want to get him to the place at the top that I want him to, he's going to have to twist it and get his elbows close. Look, he's very thick from chest to back, and he's got broad shoulders. He ain't going to look like that at the top, baby. It ain't going to happen. Yeah. So the more angular he gets, the more it's going to pull his elbows apart. Because remember, we're talking about external shoulder rotation in all these lessons. Look, it's all about the thumb, bro. It ain't about the shoulder. The thumb speaks to the shoulder and the big toe speaks to the glute. So if the thumb get too much bend in it, now some people are unicorns. Some people have really flexible wrists. Unicorns. All right.
Yeah.
This is going to be a lot easier to get to impact than this will. And so as he starts to really get it here, it gets open, and then he's got to swing the hand path left to square the face. So I think he's got a good swing. It's just he literally gets back to the bottom with all he can do.
Totally.
So if I'm to get him in here and then push him to where his left hip is higher, right hip's a little lower, all right? And now he's feeling pressure 70%, 30. See, this is like some Gary Edwin stuff, isn't it, mate?
I don't know what you're talking about, Sean. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, absolutely. Love it.
Yeah, he's one of my all-times, bud. So you're in there. All right, well, the one thing that's been nice is we've given intention, like we're pretty close to where we're going to be at impact. So the brain likes having a destination. I got a destination now, okay? This is a destination too. It's called hitting it fat or slicing it and playing only 6 out of 20 rounds, right? Yeah. So if we get in there, and then I think it's important for people also, most people, to start with just a little pre-turn in the pelvis and in the core. Because if we're going to turn in the backswing, why would we not start with just a little bit of slack? Like, why do we all have to stand the same way? Why can't we start some people who we want to help them to draw it and get them to start where they're turned if they struggle to turn? Like, I just want the ball to fly better, and I want that person to smile. I don't really care how it looks, right? Don't get too overwhelmed with vanity, right? Like Tiger Woods says, at the end of the day, you don't sign a postcard, you sign a scorecard, right? That's one of my all-time favorite comments, by the way.
Yeah.
So now I've completely changed all this. Okay. So he's got no right side bend coming in. Put some right bend side in the setup. Now from here, I would try to get him to feel like this line and this right hand creates the letter Y. Have him basically take that letter Y as wide as he can and try to feel like his buttons get over his right knee. So I've just put like 3 or 4 draws in there.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So that all we would do, Baden, was we'd literally go set up, and then we'd go right there. And I'd pre-turn him just a little bit and then try from there is to really get him to be as stricker as possible. Because if he stays less this way, he's going to get less this way. And how hard is it to hit the ball when the hands get behind the pivot? You got to throw everything this way. So before I even do anything like that, which I probably am not even going to have to do if I teach him properly, from this position, here's my backswing. And from this position, here's my backswing. I'm doing the same things. I'm just starting way better.
That's awesome. Craig, does that all make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, it really helps. Because that's part of the guessing game for me, is that I haven't been able to really know where I'm starting and how to diagnose the errors or when I'm actually swinging the club and out on the course. So that helps immensely. Yeah.
And that's why I think it's really important. Just keep filming yourself if you can, and then obviously you're going to be able to see what Sean's just done. We can send that across to you, and you can cut that little frame out of what he did, that 5 seconds, and go, that is my setup routine. And nail
Craig,
that.
look at Rory, right? Like, I mean, Rory with his irons is almost like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now Rory in the backswing, he gets the wrist a little bit extended. So I think that he does this so it just gets less extended, so he doesn't have to think of what he's doing with his hands up here, because that's really hard that's really hard to play with that, having to think about that, and knowing that if I have less wrist hinge, I'm going to have more stretch and rotation, and then my elbows will be able to be in this position a little bit better, rather than as soon as I crank that, I just need so much of that it's not possible. And the thing is, I mean, if you look at 3D, it's amazing how fast the right arm is going into internal rotation. So that's basically this way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you take it to the top, you get the scap out of position and you retract it and move it in. You have to come over the top to even make contact. So you trying to swing in to out and hit a draw would just be so frustrating, is because your body just won't let you do it.
Yeah.
Impossibility. You might
Yeah.
as well just play with what you've got, unless you sort of do some big structural changes to your setup.
Hey,
you know what I mean? Yeah.
So Baden, do me a favor real quick.
Yeah.
Pull up Cameron next to Lydia, and let's get them at the top of the backswing.
All right, let's do it.
From in front.
Yeah. Give me 2 seconds. We're half an hour in, Sean. I love it.
Yeah, you know what, bud? I mean, we'll try, but that's not that easy, dude.
All right. Here we go. All right. So let me just bring all this
it's never easy to do a good job. You know what I mean?
I know. It's bloody hard. All right. So set up, and then where do you want it?
Just take it to the top.
Sorry. Hold on. Oh, apologies. Swipe you out. Okay.
Okay. All right. So you see anything that's similar there?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So look at their lower bodies, right? Now, these are turners. Both of these two just turn for fun, right? Now, the difference is, and I find this very difficult with the women because their shoulders and T-spines have more mobility. I find it very hard to keep their hands away from their head, but those two are trying to do the exact same thing right there.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're trying to do the exact same thing there. So if you look at them, there's not a ton of wrist set.
Yeah.
They're transferring their weight, but they're doing it by turning. They're not really transferring. They're turning into their weight shift. And from right there, I mean, look, you're almost at impact now. Now you watch Cam. So you can see as Cam comes down, he's got more lag than Lydia, but that's just because his hands are moving faster. He's trying to release it the whole downswing. He's not trying to hold on to the angles at all. And now if you watch him come through, Baden, keep Cameron going, stay there. Now, Lydia. Okay, so Baden, you see how Lydia's head's a little slower and Cameron's is faster?
Yeah.
So see the PXG versus the swoosh?
Yep.
Well, that is to ensure, in Cameron's case, because of how hard he bows it in transition, that he's going to be able to extend and stand up and make sure that the face doesn't close too much. So I'm getting him to use his hands and his eyes. With Lydia, so Cameron's eyes have to go from the top, and Lydia's eyes are supposed to follow the ball, and that matches their release. Where Siwoo, I told him to keep his head down the whole time because we needed to hit a big break so we could close the face. It's all different. But it's all different in how they think about it, but it's really not that different. So when the commentator says, man, that's just proof there's 1,000 ways to swing a club, that's totally untrue. There might be three. There might be three.
Yeah.
So Cameron, it's so fun to watch him because he can do what he does, but he's a total unicorn. I mean, he's as strong as you can possibly be without being addicted to the gym. And he's as flexible as a Cirque du Soleil act. So when people see what Cam's doing, they call it the modern swing, but it's not modern. He's just a better athlete. That's all, right? Like Tiger created the modern swing. Well, Tiger was just an incredible athlete, right? I mean, up till then, you know, in the 70s and 80s, the guys playing in most cases, you know, they probably grew up at a country club and they played golf their whole life. I mean, I know Nicklaus played like 4 sports, and so did Dustin Johnson, so did Jordan Spieth. I think you should play all the different sports, but we just need to understand, like Mito Pereira and Joaquin Neiman and Cameron Champ and Cameron Young, you don't teach that. I mean, can you imagine I tell Cameron to get the club to pass his body as fast as possible? When was the last time you told someone that, Baden?
Yeah.
You never say that to anybody because it's just too here, but.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be a setup lesson for sure. And I think like the face would be in a better position because to get that where it needs to be, he's going to apply a little more torque already. So I would start with that and go from there.
Totally. Couldn't agree more. That's awesome, Sean. Really great stuff. Okay. All good, Craig? Are you good with that, mate?
Yeah, thanks very much. Really appreciate it.
All right, good to see you, pal.
Mate, that's that'll change your world. You'll be able to compare yourself, keep filming yourself, and you'll be able to do it compared to the recording. So keep at it, be patient, use all winter just to work hard at it, sort of thing. So okay, so Sean, this is Jay. So Jay, how are you, mate? Do you want to give us a little bit of background on yourself?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Hello, Sean. Hello, baby.
Hey, mate.
So I've been playing golf since 2008, and to begin with, I was a pretty good ball striker. Never really had a great handicap. The lowest I've ever been is 18.
Recording in progress.
And then a few years ago, I think I twisted my ankle playing football or soccer, and then ever since then, I just really struggled to get my weight transferred over. But in the last
what ankle was it?
It was my left ankle.
Okay.
And ever since then, I'd started to really lose myself, and I found myself with once I finished my swing, I was always on my right foot rather than my left, and I had all sorts of issues. So the last probably 15 months or so, I've just been working with a coach, and I've just been getting to the top and then turning, and then because I just wanted. I'm an accountant by trade, an analyst, so I'm very sort of. Yeah. The more things that I read or see about golf, it's probably the worse for me because I'll end up taking every little thing in, and all of a sudden it drip feeds into the swing.
You know what I was gonna say? I was gonna say, mate, that this looks like a swing that there's a lot of parts of this that have been learned on Instagram or something like that, because you're definitely a good student. and I would imagine you're a pretty good athlete because you definitely have speed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Um,
so when there's a lot of good things happening there, but I think the most important thing you said there is that you're an accountant, and
yeah.
the thing about accounting, right? It's pretty black and white. There's not really any shades of gray, and golf's a little harder to make that way because there's so many more variables than assets and liabilities and taxes, right? So I think you've already figured out, like, okay, this is what I'm not going to do. So when you went down the rabbit hole, you just got lost because, look,
Yeah.
you love hitting good shots like everyone in the world, and it feels good and it feels great, and we get dopamine from it and we want it again. And, you know, we're kind of just, there's too much hope in what we're doing rather than just getting into, you know, the cans and can'ts, right?
Yeah.
But I think you have, I think if you can improve your understanding, you'll get much better really quick because you look physically, you look pretty good.
Yeah.
But a lot of the things that you might try and fix there, they're all reactions to what, in my opinion, what is kind of out of place.
Yeah.
So when you hurt your left ankle, how long ago was that?
That was probably about 10 years ago, and it's not really even an issue anymore. But
Oh, okay.
the
So it's
problem
not an
was-
issue.
No, so I carried on playing golf I just carried on playing because I thought, you know, golf's not an athletic sport, you know, it's really not going to affect me. Funny that you mention about a rabbit hole. I actually twisted my ankle again just after the football injury by stepping into a rabbit hole at the golf club.
That's good.
You really
That's
did
good.
go down a rabbit hole.
It's
So
look, it's
I was
not golf might not be the most athletic game, but golf is very taxing on ankles, right?
Yeah.
All the torque and flex and push off. I mean, the ankles, range of motion. I mean,
Yeah.
a couple of my friends who are really good sports therapists and work with a lot of the top players in the world, they just work with how players are able to even move the digits on their toes. And look, we've all been wearing shoes forever. You've had some injuries. And when you are injured and you fight through it, your brain will start to move in different ways to make sure that you don't feel that pain. Because look,
That's
part of you wants to thrive and get better. But there's a major part of you that's even faster and even more dominant in the brain that just wants you to survive. It doesn't want you to get hurt. So of course you're not going to add torque and force into your left ankle. Of course you're going to end up on your right side.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest difference on tour now versus 20 years ago. Back in 20 years ago, the surgeon said, you're good to go, and they'd go. And now the joke is, once the surgeon says you're good, start 6 months later. Because the surgeon's not the rehab guy. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So that's, I think what happened is just over time, you learned ways to not overload it.
Yeah.
And then you've looked at your head is full of like, turn, straighten your leg, get your left wrist bowed. I know it. I can see it in your swing. I know you are literally doing all that. So Baden, I saw that you were a little ahead of me on those pictures.
Yeah, sorry.
No. So go down the line first.
Yeah. Let's get them up there. Hold on 2 seconds.
But yeah, I think with the right guidance, you could flush it, no problem. That's easy. That'd be a piece of cake.
Yeah. I think probably the last year, 15 months, my good shots are a lot better than they ever were. And that's the thing I think my backswing's quite funky, I would call it. It's very sort of, I take it.
That's fine. Look,
very steep.
Golf, the thing about golf, mate, golf is a backswing game, right? Because from the backswing to impact's like 2/100ths of a second. So you don't really have any time to. Okay, so go back to that again, babe. So let's just start at the setup. How tall are you, mate?
5'7".
Okay, so there's an incredible amount of bending over there. All right. And so what happens is, this is super important because this leads into, once again, Baden, the posture leads into So Cameron Champ's 6 feet. There's no way at 5'7" you should be more bent over than him, right?
Yeah.
It just wouldn't make sense, right? So if you look at, I'm 5'7", Ben Hogan's around the same height, the posture shouldn't be that bent over, because what happens is when you add more bend there, it becomes way harder to turn. All right.
Okay.
It becomes way harder to turn. So if you look at Cam, I like how your spine is kyphotic. I'm not really concerned about you hurting your back, but do those lines again, Baden, like from his pelvis to his head. Okay. All right. So don't worry about the backswing. I don't look. Take the backswing back to halfway back, Baden. Okay, stay there. Okay, so look, there's been a lot more players who are better from over here than from over here.
Yeah.
That's a fact. So that right now isn't the first thing that I'm going to work on. All right. So to me, what happens is, as soon as I get into this much forward bend, okay.
Yeah.
When I turn, actually, I'll do it this way. When I turn, look at how far I can go. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So now I don't turn enough. So you've been told that. So you got to turn more. So now straighten your leg and extend. And so that's how it looks. It's like just way too much turn.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is such a thing of overturning, right? So when you notice from the top how once you get to here, just how fast everything gets in front of you,
Yeah.
it's because it has to.
Yeah.
You're too good of an athlete not to do that. So you could try and play from over here, but that's not going to work. You'll shank it.
Yeah.
So, right? So for me, what are we looking at? We're looking at minimal bending in posture. All right.
Okay.
So if I set up here at 5'7" and I stand here, and then from here, now I just let the club get to the bottom with medium flex, right?
Yeah.
Now from here, I add just a little bit of ankle flex. That's me now. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can see from when you start from here, by the time you get to the top, you're so far away from the ground because you have to stand up and then turn. So I'm all the way over here, and now I have 2/100ths of a second to get it back. So I think all the wrist angles and stuff look great. I think that looks really simple, but I don't know about you, Babe, but when I look at the current best ball strikers and the all-time best ball strikers, I just can't say that depth from the hand path is something I see that often.
No.
I see the arms as much more just kind of elevation. I think what happens is we see big turns, and then obviously we have, because we're bent over, if I bend over at 25 degrees and I rotate, I'm gonna add left tilt in.
Yeah.
So it's not something I'm trying to add. I mean, I'm already gonna just add it.
Yeah.
So if you can go again and go to the in front, so the posture was perfect. And I work with Cam a lot on his posture because Cam gets like this. And you can imagine is being an extension at that speed is basically going to explode discs. So I'm not even looking at the club yet, Baden, with him.
Yeah. I'm just grabbing it out. So apologies. It is indoors, so it's a little bit blurry, unfortunately, but we should be able to get some good stuff here.
That's fine. I mean, it's still pretty cool that you can just do this anyways with 500 people watching, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so take Cam to the top.
Cam to the top.
Okay, so that's one of the biggest turners on tour, babe.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And there's not a lot there, really, is there? Like early on, this is not.
No, well, but dude,
no,
we're trying to stretch tissue so we can have bigger counter rotation phase.
Exactly. Love it. So the more you turn, the less of that you're going to get, or the harder it is to get, isn't it?
Yes, 100%. Okay, keep going. So I like that his hands are wide. It's a little too set for me, but that's no problem.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going. So
that's crazy. I would break in half. I would break in half if I tried to turn that much, I think.
But the thing is, look at how much he has to tilt his neck and his head.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Okay. To make that turn. And so to me, if I had issues with my left ankle, I wouldn't be trying to do that. You know what I'm saying? It's like he's twisting around that axis point. So if you can look now too, look at how your hands are behind your head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, some of that just it's just an appearance as well on a video because you're turning so much. So
yeah.
I like that you're turning, but all I would be trying to do is first I'd work with the posture.
Yeah.
First I'd work with the posture. So like I said, there's probably a billion ways to say it, but I think if you just stand straight up and let the club get to the ground naturally, my eyes should be looking down on the ball, not like this. My back should be rounded because my rib cage is over my pelvis, which means I'm going to be able to turn, right?
Yeah.
So nothing this way.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I just put a little ankle flex in so I can feel the ground. So you have issues with contact because if this is your kind of center of mass, it's moving back up and back down all the time because it just started too low. So you're kind of here at setup, and then you're here at impact. Yeah. Well, you're going into where you have power.
Yeah.
So that's the thing is when people try to fix the thing that looks wrong, but it's the effect of what's preceded it, it gets really ugly on the range, right?
Yeah.
So all I'd be trying to do with you is I don't mind that you do this. I don't know if I want it so abrupt.
Yeah.
Because the hands talk to the body, right?
Yeah.
So if you and I went down the street and we went to a pub and someone knocked my beer off and I went to catch it, everything is reacting to me catching it.
Yeah.
So if someone said, hey, you got to bend your knees and bend your chest and catch the beer, I drop it every time. I'm reacting to it. Okay?
Yeah.
So the goaltender's feet are reacting to where his hands are going every time. So the problem with picking it up like this is it doesn't really give the body any like inflection point on turning. So I like that you keep the mass of the club on this side of your hands, but I would just want to see it overall for you once you're in better posture is when you take it to the top from here is just make sure in that stretch phase.
Yeah.
All this wrist set isn't going to get me to really feel like I can do this because I'd have to feel this and then this, but that's disjointed.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not cause and effect. So what you'd be looking for on the video once you're standing properly is when you get to the top, I want you to feel like your hands are away from your head.
Yeah. Okay.
Because if they're away from my head, then naturally my brain is going to say, okay, let's create turn into my right leg.
Yeah.
And now from here, I'm on my right leg. I'm going to be able to push off of it and finish on my left. But I'm going to get to my left side by using my right side.
Yeah. Okay. So it's almost like a spring sort of effect.
The biggest takeaway is this.
Yeah.
Keeping the hands away, because once you start to keep the hands away, you'll notice too that they won't get too far behind you.
Yeah.
And so as soon as they get too behind me, I lose the ability to do a lot of things in physics that will allow me to square the club face.
Yeah.
So that's not far away. But I mean, if you look at John Rahm, Morikawa, Cameron, you look at anyone right now, there's not many of them at the top of their backswing who haven't turned into their weight shift.
Yeah.
And there's very few of them are narrow and almost none of them are elevated and in retraction. So baby, we see that, we see that a lot.
Do you with the rotation for Jay, are you comfortable that just getting his set up right, getting him a little bit more vertical, that'll help him like rotate a little less early in the takeaway?
Totally.
Or do you want him to actually think, create a bit more resistance and stretch in the top, don't turn as much and you still let him turn, just get the setup right?
Well, the thing is, I'm always going to come in with minimal information.
Yeah.
And then see how they took what I'd said. But I'm still always going to feel like I've got a 10-year-old in front of me and I'm using no big words. Like how can I do this and limit any language whatsoever? Okay. I've given great lessons to people with no translator and I'm speaking, one speaks Mandarin, I'm speaking English. Yeah. There's no language. That, you know what? That's a great way to practice your coaching. Just find people who who don't understand English and coach them for free until you can teach with no language. It's trippy how good people get. And you're like, why am I even talking half the time?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the idea. Is I think what's going to react is that because there's nothing here, and then he's seen everyone's videos. He gets to here, right? So he's going to steep in the shafts. He's seen that video. And then from there, he's extending his right leg and turning as much as he can. So he's probably doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's doing it well, I think. If I just get him to feel like once he's set up well, he won't have to turn so much to extend and get taller. I mean, part of the reason he's turning so much, mate, is because he's getting so tall.
Totally.
So, like the less forward bend, the more I can rotate. So if I stand straight up, I can turn a lot more than if I bend over. So I think the posture will take care of that. And then I think the idea of him just trying to feel like he gets his hands away from his head at the top, it's going to shift him a little bit more into his right side. And then from there, it's going to probably limit how much he turns. But
does that make sense, Joe? You got that, Joe?
Yep, got that.
That's a 3 out of 10. Like that's a real simple thing. So I wouldn't use video that often, mate, because you're going to lose your mind. I would just kind of get a good picture in your head of what you want to do, and maybe use a mirror instead of a video, right?
Yeah.
Video is dangerous, right? Because it just turns into labels and speculation, and then you're a smart guy, but in golf, you're still assuming. If I'm still assuming, you're still assuming.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest no-no in that whole thing, Baden, is just the posture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. And that is one thing, if you watch all athletes out there, all guys on tour, all the girls on tour, it's pretty rare that you see someone that is like that far over the ball with their top half. Like it sets off a sequence.
You know who's that bent over is Chris Wood, and he's 6'7".
Yeah.
So we're going to see more forward bend.
Yeah.
And we're going to see more tilt in all the taller players, because taller players aren't using clubs that are 3 inches over. It's like maybe a quarter, maybe a half. And if you're really tall and you have no back issues, then you're probably really lucky.
Awesome. Jay, are you good with that, brother?
Yeah, I think that's been quite harrowing, because even though I've videoed quite a lot of my splits,
That's not the word we were hoping for.
I love it.
I never really look at my setup. So even
Yeah.
seeing that there, I saw it straight away and I was like, oh, I'm quite bent over actually. But normally I take the videos and then I'm normally, because I'm just focusing on getting to the top and then rotating through, and that's when I tend to get a lot of better shots.
It sets it up, Jay. It sets it up.
Yeah.
Like that's what it's so important. Like the start is obviously going to have a huge influence on like what direction things move, how much, the angles at which things move, the tilts at which things move.
Baden. Yeah. Almost when you look at powerlifting in the Olympics, no one starts from a way different position. They just look different because their bodies are different.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
If you're gonna try to lift 400 pounds off the ground, you better be in all the right congruent angles to be able to give yourself the opportunity to do that. And this isn't everyone loves Adam Scott's golf swing. I love Adam Scott's setup. I mean, I think I'm a grip freak and I'm a setup freak. And I think that we all need to be that way more, where you cannot miss that. Like if you're giving a lesson and someone's standing like that, unless he has something he's born with or something like that, it's like there's just no way you can put someone's spine in that position and let them twist.
And this is probably a good sort of segue. Eric, we're going to bring you in here. Like Jay, even if you have a quick look at Eric here, can you just see, like, this is obviously more like this, which actually it totally changes these wrist angles in here. Can you see that? I know it's with driver, but I guarantee your driver probably looks exactly like your old swing. But, little flatter here, a little bit more upright, a little bit more arm hang out. It looks more relaxed, doesn't it? And like he's actually going to turn in a better direction.
Yeah, we'll see what happens from there.
we'll see what happens from there. Okay, so Eric, do you want to quickly sorry,
Eric.
Okay,
we got Eric.
I know it's going overtime. Give us a little bit of background. What's the story?
Yeah, sure. So I've been playing on and off my whole life, gone years in a row playing and then years in a row not playing. Playing again, largely thanks to my youngest son, who's 15 and picked up the game earlier this year and just absolutely loves it. Can't get enough of it. So it's kind of motivated me now to get out. He's actually the one behind the camera. It's motivating me to get out and try to get better again.
And what do you struggle with most? Like what's killing your game? Like beyond like what's actually you feel like you're doing in your golf swing, like what ball flights are you hitting and what clubs do you struggle with?
Yeah, this one right here is my big struggle. In fact, if I want to go out and just try to shoot my best score, I leave my driver in the bag.
Gotcha.
I'll hit a 3-wood, or a hybrid off the tee. I don't even hit this club. So in one thing I've tried for a long time to fix, I don't know, maybe you think it's a problem, maybe not, is my arm extension. I have not kind of solved that one.
Through here? Through the impact zone you're talking about. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I think Sean will probably trace it back a bit earlier than that, I would imagine. What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, also it's like, once again, how does a player's shoulders move? How does their neck move? How does their spine move? Do they, has someone dislocated their arm when they're 13 and not told you? So that's why I say it's like, go for the low hanging fruit. But, he's obviously putting a force on the club that's doing that. But like I said, it's tough to tell somebody that I've seen a lot of people with the chicken wing who stripe it. So it's, of course, we would try to change that over time. But, what needs to come first?
Yeah.
Right. What needs to come first to do that? So I think what I see here is like right now, stop it right there.
Yep.
So he has pretty good range of motion. I think he moves pretty good. I think he's he's fairly fit. I'm speculating, but he's definitely works at it. But right there in space to me, right, is go back a little earlier, Baden.
Tell me when.
Yeah, keep going. All right, now start to take it back from there. His grip is lovely.
Yeah.
Right foot might be a little too rotated out, but if that helps him turn, that's all right. Okay. So Baden, to me, if you look at just right there, okay?
Yeah.
So, there's decent things going on there, but once again, it's like I see again that the pelvis is swaying more than it's turning and the spine is extending more than it's turning.
Yeah.
And if you look at the head and the neck, it's like he's trying to look at the ball so hard. Take that back. So, Greg, look at the. Oops.
Sorry.
Look at the logo on your hat, and look at the logo on. There you go. Okay. All right. So take those back, Baden.
Sorry. Oh, yep.
You're good. You're good.
She's the perfect one to work. That's perfect. Yeah.
Well, the guy who does it the most was Nicholas and DJ.
Yeah, and Faldo.
Yeah, those are all pretty. They're all pretty good. But of course, he's been told, Greg. I don't know if I've ever said it in a lesson, but I definitely was told for years to keep my head still. So you're doing that well.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the start of the chicken wing, Greg. Is that right there? Okay, so
it's Eric. Sorry, Sean. It's Eric.
Oh, sorry, Eric.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Eric, that's the start of the chicken wing right now.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So because where we see problems, something's always preceded it, right? So it's like no one ends up with a drinking problem if they didn't have trauma that preceded it. So that's the problem. The problem isn't the drinking; it's getting rid of the trauma. That the drinking will go away quite quick. So I think that when you're looking at the ball still here and you're trying to move, I think you've done an interesting job of opening that right foot up more to make sure that you get more turned into your pelvis. I don't really hate that, to be honest with you. I think that would help a lot of people. But when you set up in this position, and then the first move is that the spine is going towards the target and the head is almost turned towards the target, it's really difficult to create a backswing from there. So if I was going to, on steroids, say, on 3D, how would you look at this point? It's almost like that. Like that's how it looks to me, baby, when I see that takeaway, right?
Totally. I agree completely.
But he's got good movement, so he can kind of still get it to the top, but you have to know that he's still here. He still is here.
Yeah.
Okay. So then he starts down, he's going to be here.
Yeah.
And then he's a decent athlete, so as he comes through, he starts to pike to make sure that the path isn't too out to in.
Yeah, exactly. Chicken wing.
And then he tries to keep it down the line.
Yeah.
So that chicken wing's actually like the only reason you hit it at all.
Exactly.
So I think it's, once again, when I do things like this, it's always like so much setup in the first 3 feet of the takeaway, right? That's the first place, right? How can I leave them knowing they're getting better, right? Because thinking they're not getting better is like I can't sleep. So basically what I would be doing with Eric in that point from here is just starting to work a little bit on letting his eyes follow the takeaway.
Totally.
And in doing so is let the eyes follow the takeaway and make sure that this chest is starting to turn over the right side more, and allowing the pelvis and the abdomen to go with it. Because if I'm going to swing to the top of my swing, there's no way my head could be there. I'll never turn. I'm going to have to tilt to get the extra space. Well, now I'm out here the whole time finding a way to bring it back. So it basically be like, for a pivot feeling, you would start in your posture and feel like this hip is going to turn behind you, and this chest is going to get more over the right foot. So it's not so much this way as it is the hip turning and the chest turning. And that's going to, remember, when we turn properly, Baden, it's a lot easier to get better structure here, because if we don't use the pivot properly, most of us do not have wrist and elbows and shoulders that can get into these world-class positions.
Totally. Yeah.
So the pivot is the key to arm structure in many different cases. But yeah, that just in space is, as you're sliding going this way, is let this turn and let your eyes go back just for the first part of the takeaway. Because at this point, my head would be in this position. Now, if my head's here, it's going to be a lot easier to turn. Like, Baden, if you said to me, if I was sitting here looking this way, you called my name, when I look at you, my chest turns 40 degrees.
Yeah.
So you can't keep someone's head in that position and tell them to turn against it, because the brain's going to say, okay, I have my C spine, which is essential to using my arms. And then I have my T spine, which is essential to everything else. And my L spine, which is essential to everything else. So if I'm turning my neck this way as I'm trying to turn my body this way, my brain is going to tilt me, because the tilt will take the pressure off of the vertebrae. So it's not even, I think it'd be, if he went and hit like hundreds of balls a day for 5 days, I think he could potentially like get pretty sore.
Totally. Yeah. You might even get a sore neck occasionally, Eric, or a sore back, because literally the vertebra and the neck angles are working completely against each other. And I find often, Sean, people with those neck angles that Eric's got, it's, Eric, you're sort of so sick of the ball going right that you turn your head to the left, right? You're like, I've got to somehow get it on the left-hand side of the fairway because I'm so sick of slicing it. And you end up making it worse and worse and worse, and you can't turn, and you keep cutting it. And you can see with that driver, the club head was outside the ball line, like you're hitting it in the neck and like low in the face. And the hard bit for you, the big psychological bit, I would imagine, Sean, stop me if you think I'm wrong, but when you do this, it's going to feel like you're going to hit it right. Do you know what I mean? Like, because your eye line will totally change and it feels like it's pointed right, but that's the only way you'll ever learn to draw it, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, you've actually got to, you point your eye angle that way, and that'll totally change the way the body can work.
Look, what I've seen in now this is a student taking a lesson, right? Like, what's the psychology behind it, right? As I said, right, we have the human brain, and part of the brain is so that we thrive and we get better at things and we enjoy life and love our family and think about God. That's part of our brain. Okay. The part of our brain that's way older, though, is just a survivor.
Yeah.
Period. So people don't like to be uncomfortable. So the brain does not like cognitive stress. It's like cognitive ease. And it doesn't like to be outside of its comfort zone because uncomfort feels like extinction. And we're definitely not going to be extinct, right? If we look, we've tried our hardest to be extinct by now. If we're not, we're pretty good at surviving, right? So the idea is that when you're taking a lesson, like it reminds me of an interview with LeBron James where they asked LeBron, they said, you know, what makes you one of the best players of all time? And LeBron said, what makes me the best player of all time is I'm the most comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so guess what? If you set up and you do that and you feel like you're going to hit it right, then, you know, there's no pity party. I don't care. Like you have to do that. It's like you can't grow if you don't challenge your belief systems. And our belief systems is what creates this sense of comfort. But there's no growth from comfort. It's just comfort. We stay equally bad, right? So the thing I've noticed is the people who flourish the most in golf lessons, they're all right with not feeling good. They're all right with feeling weird. They're all right with it not feeling how it should feel and it looking different. And it doesn't take, like Eric, it doesn't take the brain that long to do all the computations to suit that and fix that and completely change the visual systems and all these different parts. The brain's incredible. Like human beings are absolutely amazing. So just the idea of really making sure that you turn the pelvis instead of slide it. There might be some slide to it, but it's going to turn mostly. And then making sure that when you get to here, you're going to want to feel like this ear is probably a little bit closer to the ground. And that's just going to give you so much room and time to be able to not be as over it because you're going to be able to get the club more from the inside just with the backswing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think
yeah.
Is it the chicken wing is more the effect, like don't even worry about like extending my arms if I fix these other things?
Not well. Yes, that's at some point. At some point, say you were to do what I just said and you did it really well. You did it 9 out of 10. You did it for months and months and months. I guarantee you when you send me a video, you'd have less of a chicken wing because when you change where the club's coming from, then the brain is going to react to the new intention versus now you look down the target, you're a decent athlete, your brain knows where the ball is, you start coming down this way and it starts trying to make angular changes to help you get it to where it's going to get. The brain just doesn't understand the geometry that gets affected in that time frame. Mm-hmm. It always thinks it's doing the right thing. Mm. So that's it's not rocket science, but it's definitely science.
Yeah. I wouldn't even try and fix those arms on the way through. As Sean said,
not yet.
Do not fix that. That is what makes you hit it. It'd be like getting Lee Westwood to try and get rid of a little bit of that on the way through. Don't do that. Like that's what's making it work.
Yeah. I think though it's how he tries to get the path. The problem is it's going to be a face opener, but it gets the path less across it. So I think that once he did all that stuff, I mean, if you just put somebody and you get them to hit balls off a downslope for a week and a half, they're probably going to start to learn how to get their arms out. Like no one wants to punch someone with their elbows still bent. They want to get their arms straight. So yeah, that's just a reaction. And I bet Eric, when you go to practice, when you try to keep your arms straight, it doesn't get any better. Mm-hmm. No. So it's, remember 20 years ago, I gave a lesson to someone who looked just like you, and I didn't fix the head and I didn't fix the pivot. And I said, get your arms straight and go sign up for more lessons in the clubhouse. And after 5 lessons, I then gave them a book on sports psychology because I was sure it couldn't have been me. It must be mental.
It's
so not anymore.
Physical. It's just angles. So yeah, get your setup different, get your head on right, get that turn right. And all of that other stuff will take care of itself, almost guaranteed, Eric.
Yeah, great. Love it.
Awesome. Okay, cool. And once again, you can have a look at that setup and the little routine that Sean went through. I'll send this link through to you so you can watch it all and just study it on repeat every night as you're going to bed. Just listen to Sean's voice. Okay. All right. Todd, we're going to make this really quick. Is that all right?
Okay.
Todd had one of these experiences, so he's a very lucky man. But Todd, do you want to give Sean your background? So Todd's a good player, Sean.
Yeah. Well, I'm okay. I'm 58 years old from Connecticut. I've been competing. Well, I've been playing for like 20 years, and I play in the amateur events in Connecticut, and not as good as I'd like to. And I enjoy the process of golf, getting better, and that's where I'm at. I like to compete and just try to get better.
Did you play a lot of sports growing up?
Yeah, baseball, football, basketball, soccer. Yep.
Okay,
College
good.
baseball. College baseball.
Yeah, well, if you started at 38 and you become a good player, then that meant that your brain had prerequisites for moving and being able to fling objects. All right, yeah,
Well,
just run it, Baden.
Can I just say to Eric really quickly? Eric, look at that. See the totally different tilt on his hat there.
Yeah.
You can see that, can't you?
Yeah.
Anyway, all right.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's nice. It's simple, isn't it? There's not a lot of rubbish in it, that's for sure.
The biggest issue I have is the steepness a lot. My club gets very steep.
Yeah. Gets a bit
Okay.
flippy.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay. So Baden, and what club is that? Like a 6-iron?
That I believe is a 8-iron.
Okay, so how far do you hit 8-iron?
8-iron, 150 carry, 150.
So probably what's that? 87 mile an hour club head speed ish. Okay.
Correct.
So now go to in front, Baden.
Yep.
Yeah, setup's golden.
It's good stuff.
Okay, so take it back.
Sorry, I'm just going to expand it out a touch. Let me get rid of you, Sean. There we go.
Okay, stay there. All right. So the low hanging fruit for me right now. Now take it back take the down the line back, Baden. Okay. All right. Okay. So, all right. So I would say the 2 points that I see right there, all right, is the knees are only changing in flexion and extension. So Baden, like with a better player, I want to know like what he can do as far as rotation wise, right? Like just because someone's not turning, the key is not always to tell them to turn, because what if they can't turn, right? So there's more to it than that. But if you just look at the angle at the top, okay, I don't think he's so steep with the swing direction, right? So bring it down. Okay. All right. So he stalls out a little bit right there, starts to extend.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's not, keep going. Look, there's no divot. So it's not like he's steep. When I think of steep, dude, I don't think of the pitch of the shaft. I think of the angle of attack. Right. Like that's where we've lost ourselves in golf, with all the steepeners and shallowers and getting it shallow and all that, even though I know that's all in there. Is that, how's that steep if he doesn't even hit the ground?
Yeah.
So from in front now, just start that down a little bit. Okay, so stop there, go back. Okay, that's a lot of lag for someone swinging an 8-iron at 87 miles an hour. All right, so just so we understand, right? Cameron Champ and Wilco Nienaber have the most lag on video, one, because they lay the club down a ton from the top. So that in the parallax, that makes it look like they're holding on to the lag. And two, their hands are moving the fastest. So of course the club is going to lag behind. So you never want to see when like 8-iron 150 is a good hit, at 58, it's a great hit. But just go back to, okay, keep coming down. Okay, right there. All right. So Cameron hits 8-iron 187 yards. So remember, Baden, right now, Cameron is trying to get that club to pass him as fast as he can.
Yeah.
So just look there. Like Cameron is wider in his wrist angles than our friend here, right?
Yeah.
So what you see through impact with the kind of stand up and the flip, because he's a really good athlete, is watch what starts to happen here. Okay. He's trying to do that the whole downswing because he's too narrow.
Yeah.
So the idea is, if you look now, go down the line. Not with Cameron.
No.
Okay. Okay, so from a geometry standpoint, I would say that that's a little in and gets a little across. And the thing is, none of the across is coming because he's turning too much. Right?
Yeah.
So this keep going through?
All the way through to the finish?
Nah, just to there. All right, so that whole look is just him doing everything he can to release the golf club as fast as he can. So it's a lot easier to release the club. That's just freaky. No one can do that.
I was just like looking at it.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? So, all right, so now can you just show me, Baden, so I can go through this a bit?
Yeah. Here we go.
All right, so kind of, I think two of the worst words used in golf instruction is plane and lag, right? So, growing up, being on the same plane, and then we look at this new technology that they show where they follow the sweet spot, and the sweet spot's never even close to where it goes up and down. Maybe a couple players are closest, but for the most part, you see rapid changes, right? Okay, so the problem is, I think, in the takeaway for him is that when someone's not really turning that much and it still looks in already, it's going in this way, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So from here, if he's not going to turn, he's going to get narrow. It's going to get across, right?
Yep.
And so when it's narrow and across, if it's narrow now, there's a good chance it's going to be here too much. Okay. So I need to find a way from here to get this club back to the ground. So I'm going to decelerate and stop all their actions and stand up. So it gives me more room. As soon as I hit the wall, I'm able to release it more now. Okay. And that's where that's where in his thing, he just said that he just wants more consistency. Okay. Right. So if you look at the players on tour who had a ton of wrist set, not a lot of body turn, and then a lot of hand action, they're great players, but they're not consistent ball strikers because there's so much timing and all that. So the tumors are that if it gets in, it's going to go over. And not only is it doing that, is when it gets narrow, he's going to drive and extend faster and then have to throw it. So I think that I would like to see him over time get better at allowing the pelvis to turn a little bit, right? I mean, like I said, I don't know. Sometimes people just can't turn, right? I'm sure he can. But is being able to turn and then just feeling like the takeaway is a little more outside, because if he's here now and I add turn, he's going to be even more in, right?
Yeah.
So, but for him, to me, the low-hanging fruit is that it's really hard to play from here, bud. And so when we see Dustin and these guys and they're like that, we think that's why they hit it so far. But what's happening, just so everyone understands, is we're starting left, we're moving right, we're starting to turn. As soon as our left arm's here, other things start going in space, right? And so the momentum of the club is going back as the hands are starting down. Lag is in effect. Whereas our player here, he's just dragging it. Right? So there's going to be the faster I do this, the quicker I decelerate, which is going to let me get the club out. But that's difficult to time. So it's like driver's probably good, ball on a tee is good, but like ball below the feet or a downslope as a good player, he's going to struggle with those shots in a big way, right? So now we're talking about a guy who can shoot good scores already. He doesn't need a swing change, but some of the things that we would work on would complement his ability to have more variation coming into greens with trajectory and everything.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what, you say, Todd, that your ball striking under pressure, it really goes off. Like when you go to actually compete, your ball striking sort of falls apart.
Yes.
Well, technically under pressure, you're going to do more of what you already do incorrectly. Okay. You add tension to it. Like when people get tense, they don't get more free, they get more inward. So now this doesn't even make as long a backswing. There's probably more wrist set, and then it's here even earlier, right?
Right.
So that's everyone, man. I've never, Greg, I've like rarely ever seen a video of my players on the range and then ever seen a video on the course that looks identical to it, because every shot's different. So I've always said, like, the swings we post from the range, I want to start doing a thing on Instagram where I post like all the bad shots just to let people know that these guys hit it terrible too. But the first thing I would do, but would I be a little bit more outside on my takeaway? And I think what that'll do is that'll encourage you to turn a little more. Theoretically, it should, because as soon as you get here and you're a good athlete, you're not going to turn more because it's going to be in a dead position now. So I'd like to see the club like a little bit more outside the hands. And then I would just be looking again for overall way less wrist set. Because at impact, we look like this. So the last thing we want to do is have so much wrist set. Okay, then we have to do like an extravagant shift and rotate. There's too many things to it, right? So being to where there'd be less wrist set, your arms are going to be wider. And then from there, you're going to be able to compress it better, because everything about this looks like you're going to hit it really, you're going to compress it. But everything about the reaction is a non-compressor. And so, you know, toe strikes, hooks, blocks. I mean, it's,
a lot of toes. A lot of toe shots.
But that's the thing, is if you look at this, if I was in here and I was stiff wristed and I come into impact here, that radius is going to stay constant. If I have to flip, look at how fast that toe goes left. Right. So you kind of stay into out and flip it to time it right. So if you try to rotate more through the ball, that's not going to help either, because that's just going to get more toey. So for me, for you, really simple, I would be trying to take it back nice and low, wide, and out. And I think that'll start engaging this to move a little more. Okay. And then really trying to fight off any wrist hinge. So trying to make the backswing with your arms and your turn more than your hands, because once you get into this position, look, the golf swing's a function of pulling and pushing. So Baden, if you look at certain players on video, when they get to the top, you'll see the sweet spot drop. But if you look at Scotty Scheffler, Adam Scott, sweet spot goes this way.
Yeah.
It goes up. So it can't go up unless I apply a force to it. Remember, every motion we've seen today was a force preceded the movement, but more importantly, an intention preceded the force. Yeah. So if the intention's not accurate, we got no chance. And that's why the understanding is so important. And that's why, I mean, honestly, like, setup and posture could be a 10-chapter book.
Yeah.
It's not, when people say, oh, that's old school, it's like, well, look, if you have a Lamborghini, but you have diesel in it, it ain't going to work no matter how good the car is. It just won't even matter.
Completely agree.
So I think, Greg, if you can feel overall, like if you, what's that?
It's Todd.
Oh, I'm on Greg still. Sorry, Todd. If you can, Baden, put Cameron up there again.
Yeah. We're coming. From the side or front on?
In front, please. Okay, so watch this. So take it back. Okay, so see that, go back down a little bit. Right there. No, back up. All right, so you see my friend David Orr there is behind us. You see where the glove is versus the golf bag.
Yeah.
Okay, so now go to the top. Okay, back down to that same point, please. Dude, look at how close he gets his hands back to where it was in the backswing. And we know he's rotating, which is pulling the arm in. But he's literally got the same radius in both directions. So when people say to me, Cameron has the most lag, I don't see it, because yes, he has lag because it's lagging behind the hands.
Yeah.
But it's not drag. And that's why as he comes in, keep coming into impact and through. look, there's almost like minimal divot there. There's hardly any divot at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as you're saying, Sean, the biggest mistake people make and this is what Sean's saying, guys, is that because the shaft lays this way so much, it looks more lagged from the front. And that's what you're saying, Sean, isn't it?
Yes,
so because
100%.
it goes that way, it looks like it's super laggy when you look at it from the front angle, but it actually isn't any more increased wrist angle. It's it's an optical illusion sort of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, 100%. So do you think, Todd, that you would do you try and take the club around more to try and avoid the steep on the down? Do you try and shallow the backswing to try and stop the steepness?
But he's not steep.
No.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I'm steep, and I'm trying to get more arm depth to get, less.
Yeah.
That's here's the thing, right? Is that I don't think the backswing looks a lot different than this. And when I add turn to it, it's now deep.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to turn much and you get it deep, you're just going to get it really across you in here, and then you're going to have to get it away from you. And so it's that the arms elevate; they're quite linear, I think. And the problem is Greg, when people get deep. Oh, sorry, Todd. When people get deep too soon, if they're not incredible movers, there's only one place to go. So I think for you, it's a little bit more like using your athleticism. I think just going out and keeping it simple, it's kind of a little more Freddie Couples. It's a little more out with a turn because now this club has momentum. So the more it swings this way, the more it's going to want to do this. The more it swings this way, the more it's going to want to do this, right? So that's the problem with coaching depth and teaching is that if we get the mass of the club too in, we're going to have to get it out anyway. So when you look at Freddie or Jim Furyk or Kenny Perry or Ryan Moore or Colin Morikawa, all the guys who kind of take it, they don't take it way out with their hands, but they definitely take it outside their hands. The club is just naturally going to have a lot of this to it just based on physics. And with your arms going to be, when you do that, your arms are going to be in front of you better here, then you're going to be able to do more things this way rather than the other way. If I look at the top 10 in the world, I just don't see many people who are deep, but they all get pointed out as being deep. It's because they all make really great turns with their pivot.
Yeah. The depth comes from the turn, not from sucking your arms up your exhaust pipe, as we say.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Totally.
So it would be a little more, kind of even like a little Jim Furyk drill or a figure eight drill where he's kind of working on, and this is mandatory that we get out of this. Okay. We definitely need to get that right arm wider and more away from the head with less of anything here. Right. That's going to help with the consistency of the strike more than anything than to get the shape that he wants rather than to hit like the late draw with extension and rollout. Is just kind of sitting there, Todd, and hitting balls where you kind of got that image of Fred Couples where you're going to kind of take it kind of up and out and then really feel it loop and up and out and let it loop. That's going to help you with generate speed and then give you better geometry. So when the club comes from there on the way down, you could use physics to square the face rather than having to use it with square the face with your body and your hands. But that's look, if you came to me today on the range and you're already a good player and you're 58, and you're going to work at it. I mean, if we worked on those two things for 2 months, you're going to hit it way better. That's everyone today, Baden. No one's more than a 3 out of 10 in difficulty. It's all quite like those are going to be lessons where within 10 minutes we're going to get some shocking wows in body language because it's just it's understanding more than anything. So for the coaches out there, you got to be able to. I think it's really important. Like when I had this kid from Oklahoma State come to see me, Aman Gupta, and he was hitting balls from in front. He reminded me of Justin Thomas, and from down the line, he reminded me of Cameron Champ. So I was kind of like, that's interesting. Like, what's my intuition telling me with this? Like, why is he here? If he's spinning it too much, he looks like he should hit it low, but he hits it really high. And so I start going through this puzzle in my mind about this matchups and these different types of ideas. And the kid's really good, by the way. But I want to be able to stand there and be like, what would Mike Adams say right now? What would Baden say? What would Dana Dahlquist say? What would Kelvin Mia say? What would George Gankis say? What would Drew Steckel say? What would Jeff Smith say? I want to be able to teach what everyone knows, because that's the most important part. As soon as you get methodological, as soon as you get into certainty, and as soon as you get into fundamentalism, it's like the same thing with a stereotype. Stereotypes aren't totally untrue, but the story is untold. And that's the same with methods, right?
Totally. Amazing. Sean, that's an hour and a half. I'm proud of you. How good is that? We've got a couple of questions, but we're not going to do them. We better wrap this thing up. Mate, that was just an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for doing that. I think the guys obviously got a huge amount out of it. And boys, I'm sure you probably want to thank Sean really quickly as well.
Thank you, Baden.
Yeah, thanks, Sean.
You bet, guys. Thanks for coming on. That was fun.
Thanks for your time.
You too.
Okay,
pal.
team. Well, thank you so much for being here once again. So we did this obviously with the help. Inside Golf is like an epic subscription that golf.com have got, where you can go and you can access awesome content. We're going to be putting all of these webinars behind that paywall, and you'll be able to watch like a great resource and library of content there. So can't recommend it enough. So head on over to there. You also get $25 off a skills lesson. So yeah, get involved if you can. But next time we're going to have another great coach here, and I cannot wait for that to happen. So yeah, stay tuned. Everyone, thank you so much for being here, and good luck with all your golfing. We'll see you soon.
Peace, guys.
Thank
See
you.
you guys.
Thank you.